All right, welcome to the Life of a Marketer podcast. And today we have BL Ochman, who functions as a fractional CMO and helps businesses. I'm going to let BL, as usual, introduce herself and tell us about what she does and who she helps. So, BL, take it away and tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate that. I've been doing digital marketing since 1995 and have worked, I'm experienced in a ridiculous number of verticals that range from finance to food, cars to cookies, basically the kind of cookies you eat. And I have been doing digital strategy, I help brands tell their story. I help them be clear in what they are offering and help them therefore to increase their visibility and their sales.
Awesome, awesome. And so, I know that you've been doing this a long 95.
A
That's a
long
long
time.
time. You have seen the rise in this era of so many marketing strategies and tactics.
Yep.
Um, right now, what do you think is important for companies if they're trying to tell their story to their consumers and get in front of them?
Well, there are a number of things. I'd have to make a list. I couldn't say just one thing, but what's super important is video, because YouTube is the second largest search engine and it's owned by Google. So I help brands to optimize their YouTube channels and to use YouTube has basically two algorithms that for some reason are a big mystery, and so I help them to handle that. It's all about content. Everything is about putting out content on a regular basis. And the person who said this best of all was Seth Godin. He said it in one sentence: you can't just tell people what you want to tell them, you have to tell them what they want to know. And brands are still out there talking about us, about us, about us. And in my opinion, you shouldn't need an about us page. Should be clear what you do from your homepage. And, if you want to talk about your team, that's one thing, but about us, explaining what you do, you're doing something really wrong if you need that. And, the Clue Train Manifesto said this back in the early 90s. And I think that anybody who wants to call themselves a marketer should have to memorize that, paste it on the wall. What they said was
I'm sorry,
there's
what was that called? Because I'd
the
never heard
Clue
of that.
Train. Well, you need to read it. The Clue Train Manifesto was the thing that basically defined internet marketing. It said there is no market for brands to talk about themselves. There's no market for corporate speak, and essentially that you have to be clear, and you have to be concise, and you have to be interesting, which most brands haven't learned to this day. Show me 100 websites and you'll be sleeping before you finish looking at them, because most of them are just really boring.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's I'm assuming you probably heard of Eugene Schwartz and some of the stuff that he has written, and he
I
says the
have not.
same kind of. Oh yeah, he says the same kind of thing, same kind of deal. He talks about that. I was actually just in a training, and they mentioned that uh, the quoted him some of the things that he said. It's exactly what he says. That quit talking about yourself, and you need to talk about the problem that you're solving for your.
Exactly, like, what can you do for me? And I don't care about you, I care about me and how you're going to help me. And don't hide your prices, for Christ's sake. you know I mean, that's dishonest when you hide your prices. And the other thing that makes me really crazy these days is, customer service is dead. And if you want to stand out on the internet, provide customer service. Put your phone number on your website and have people who speak English answer your phone. And don't make people angry, because there's an awful lot of anger on our planet right now, and brands are adding to it with stuff like that.
Sure, sure. All right. So tell us, changing gears a little bit, tell us, Beal, about the best thing about being in the marketing industry.
Uh, that's a tough question for me to answer, because I'm not sure how to approach that. I guess the best thing about it is that I'm constantly learning and constantly, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm constantly updating my skills. I'm constantly researching and learning and being able to bring opportunities to clients. And, that's my background is journalism. So, what's interesting to me about all of this is really the research part of it and then being able to tell the
Mm,
story. And I think there is a great deal of really mediocre marketing out there. And we're also inundated with information
mhm,
and
mhm.
overloaded with messages. And to stand out from that, you really have to know what you're doing. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of perspective in this field anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot tougher than it used to be because that mediocre marketing. And I'd agree with you. I
Mm.
like to me, it's always the funnest part of the projects are the research parts.
Yeah,
Just
the
going and
learning aspect of
seeing,
it,
yeah, seeing what people say and the way they're thinking about things, and you always discover things, and you're like, holy, oh my goodness, it's that's
I
so
didn't know that.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and learning about your client is always so fascinating. All right, so what sort of advice do you offer to those that are in the marketing industry right now?
Well, don't take for granted that you know what you're doing. You know, I never take that for granted. I'm always learning. I'm always taking this webinar and that webinar and reading and talking to people and networking and learning from people. And what turned me on about the internet to begin with, like back in the 1995, was that at that time you could call up basically anybody and say, "Can you show me what you're doing? Can I learn from you? Can I come see you? Can you show me?" And everybody'd be like, "Yeah, come on over, let's talk." And I think that that's the crucial thing, is to constantly be learning and asking questions. And that's what I think is the most important thing that we need to do, because how can you help somebody else if you're not learning yourself all the time?
Yeah, that's good advice. There's always I'm learning something every day new about marketing in general, about a tactic or a right now I'm learning some stuff about groups and building communities and stuff like that that before that wasn't as focused on. It's been eye opening for sure. Yeah, there's always
That's
something
a
new.
hard thing to do.
Yeah,
Takes
it is.
time and it takes money.
So, what are your favorite sources for learning that maybe the average marketer doesn't go to?
I do lunch club networking platform a couple times a week, and I get to meet a lot of people. I'm in a whole bunch of Slacks with other marketers where we share information. One that I highly recommend is called Serial Marketers, and one of the parts of that platform is called Ask and Answer, where people say, can anybody tell me more about this? I can share information about that. And uh, not being able to ask, not being afraid to ask people, like, will you show me, will you teach me? I'm really impressed with what you do. Can I learn more from you? I mean, that's like, learning 101, I guess. But it's just this endless curiosity that you need to have.
Sure, sure.
But I would say that I read on an average day 20 or 30 different newsletters and publications, and check on websites. But sadly, very sadly, one of my main sources of information since 2007 has been Twitter, which we're watching, combust itself right now. I'm not ready to leave, but I'm sad about what's happening on the
Hmm.
platform. And I'm already a paying member. I've been paying for it since you could pay for it, because you do get other things as a member, like the ability to edit your tweets and access to top stories that people are reading and that sort of thing. But am I going to pay $8 a month for my check mark? I don't think so.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, the thing about it is, the reason that people are not leaving in droves is I have almost 11,000 followers on Twitter. I'm going to go
Oh,
somewhere else and
nice.
start over. I mean, you
Oh,
don't get to take
mm.
those with you. So I
Yeah.
have been underwhelmed by the platforms I've looked at so far.
Yeah, it's always good when you can also get the people that are in a social media community to follow you via email as well, because the social media platform can go away at any time, but if you got their email, you can still email them at least. So that should be interesting for a lot of marketers to start working that out. Like, how can I get my social media following into an email list? That'd be a good
Well, that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, that would be
And
a good service if you know how to do that. Yeah.
well, you can get your LinkedIn following. Uh, you can get that, but no, you can't get your Twitter followers. I mean, I tell clients like the most important real estate you have is your email list, but you
Mhm.
don't get your email list by being on a social platform. You get your email list by, being involved with and you have to have a newsletter, you have to be on platforms where you become visible for people to want to follow you.
Sure.
And that's really hard. Everybody's
Sure.
so fragmented these days.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
it's
is your
it's
advice for getting people's email?
my advice for getting people's email. There's lots of ways to slice that you can do. One way is, obviously a lead magnet. So if you've got followers on social media, you can start just offering different lead magnets to them, free information that they can download in exchange for their email, and then you can have them inside and start to email them as well. Another way is like what we're doing, podcast.
Yeah.
And you can grow as you grow your podcast, you're gonna have a list of people that subscribe to you. And um, another way is just paid ads. So just putting out a lead magnet, like you'd use Facebook or YouTube ads, and like the lead ads on Facebook, and then you get people's information. So I mean, there's all sorts of ways to
One of the biggest issues with every client I've ever had is explaining to them that, when you give, the more information you give, the more you'll get back. People are worried, this is my proprietary information. Well, not really. And you're not going to give away your proprietary information. You're going to demonstrate your knowledge. And, yeah, it's a lot of work to do that.
It is, and there's an old proverb that says, if you water first, you also will be watered. Like watering someone else's animals, and then they'll return the favor.
That sounds
Um,
biblical. Yeah.
yeah, it's a Proverbs, from the book of Proverbs.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I
and
thought.
yeah, and so that's a really good proverb for me, like for business, because that I talk to about my clients. Like, if you just try to uh, appear in front of people, that can work if they absolutely need what you have. And but if it's something that's not just an easy B2C, then you're gonna have to nurture a relationship, and you're gonna have to water them so that they water you back. Not, it's very difficult.
All of which takes time,
It does.
and that's very difficult.
It
No
is.
two
It is.
ways about it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Not easy out here. There's a lot of competition.
It
Not
is.
all of it, not all of it really qualified or worthy of the business. Some people are better at selling than they are at doing. And there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people twisting people's arms and psychologically using sales. And all right. So changing this is a pretty short podcast. We try to keep it short. So changing up a little bit. What other successful people in marketing like yourself would you like to acknowledge that should be on the podcast?
Well, you definitely should interview David Berkowitz, who founded the serial marketers community, because
Okay.
David is definitely one of the most connected people on the planet Earth, and also one of the kindest and most generous, and knows everybody, knows everything, has time for everyone. You should definitely have him. Um, Only marketing people, are we
If you
talking
think they
about?
should be on this podcast, yeah, you can mention them.
Well, I trying to think of his name. I interviewed somebody who was so interesting, and he was doing NFTs for good. I will send it to you.
Okay,
But
no
I
problem. No
definitely
problem.
think that he was fascinating. He was using NFTs to teach children about climate change and ecology, and he made it into a game for them. Uh,
Nice.
I can't think of his name right now, but yeah, he's really great.
Yeah, that sounds like a fascinating interview. I'll have to get that from you for later.
Yeah.
All right. One final question, just for fun. Tell me the oldest technology you remember using.
um, Using for work or using period.
Using period. It could be either. You could talk about work.
Transistor radio.
Transistor radio. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, when they got small enough so you could carry them around, before the iPhone, before the Apple one. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could have a little transistor radio and you could carry it around with you.
And so that was a big deal for you. How can I ask you? You don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask you. How old were you when you first saw the transistor radio?
Uh, 8, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It was just something that was there. Um, you know, my first equipment for work was an was a manual typewriter, and then I got an IBM Selectric, which was like, oh my God, that was so cool because you could type so fast on it.
Yeah.
And then my first IBM computer, and I'll tell you a funny story. When I got my first computer, I owned a PR firm at the time, and so we had all these media lists, and there was a software called Metafile, and it was so much more than what we needed for our little 6-person firm, but it was a way to organize all of the things. And you had to go to a motel in, the backwoods of Pennsylvania for like 2 days to learn how to use this platform. And they literally sent someone to your office to install what they said was a lock on your computer so you couldn't steal their software.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
If I tell you the
Yeah.
thousands of dollars I spent trying to learn how to use that platform and teach it to people who worked for me, I mean, it was such a nightmare.
Oh,
Now it's
wow.
all so easy.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You saw in your lifetime transistor radio to this.
Right, exactly.
That is just totally crazy, right? I mean, when you
Yeah.
think about it on the scale of human history,
That's a big
where
deal.
people lived exactly the same for hundreds of years with almost no changes, and then
Right.
we went from
We have changes every week. There's always something new and something interesting and something better, and not always better, but different.
what a time to be alive, right? I mean, it's interesting times for sure.
We live in interesting times, yes. Definitely.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So you transistor radio, I think that's probably you might be the winner for the only one that doesn't count is the first interview I did with my mom where she said, because I was just practicing the podcast, so I did it with my mom and she said pencil. So that doesn't count. That was smart
No,
alecky.
that wouldn't
So
count.
I think you might have won. I mean, and we had someone the last podcast. They said, what did they say? Envision line or something. I don't know what it's called. I'd never even heard of it. It's some kind of gaming system. It was an alternative to Atari that has sports games. I don't know, from the 70s or something like that. Um,
I don't know. That one, I don't know.
all right. Well,
But
anyway,
anytime there's been some new thing, like I always wanted it. So, you know, I've had one of everything.
you remind me of my mom. She's the same way. Like we always had one of the first ones to have a PC in our house, or but wow, transistor radio, that's pretty cool. All right. So you're
That's
the winner.
funny,
You're the
right?
winner of the contest.
It's always good to win something, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me on here,
No,
Jared. I
thank you for being on
appreciate
here.
it.
Thank you for being on. Okay, we got to close because we try to keep it pretty short. But thank you
Yes.
so much for being on, BL.
My
This
pleasure.
this has been Life of Marketer podcast. We stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. We've had so many podcasts that we may start to stream at different time periods. We'll let you know. We also release it on YouTube. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll see it. Like and subscribe, share it with your friends. Really enjoyed having you on, PL. Thank you so much.
Thank you.